What's good? My people's flying speaks back, man. Another video. Been off for a couple days, but we back at it, man. Anyway, Jason Whitlock, the former journalist who had a job at Fox, and from what I understand, he had jobs at other places. I'm not spending a whole lot of time looking into all of that because that's irrelevant to what we're speaking of today. But anyway, on his podcast, I guess, named Fearless, okay, um, he deals with Aja Wilson. In this particular segment, um, he's taking his hate-filled attacks and kind of, at least for the moment, veered away from um, Angel Reese, and he turned his attention to Aja Wilson. What it appears to be is a pattern of his. Right now, when he deals with women's sports, which is something that this clip is going to demonstrate that he cares nothing about, um, he pretty much centers it around on one player, of course. That is the Elvis Presley of women's basketball. That would be Caitlin Clark. And then any other player that is perceived as a threat to her, he points his attention to that player and attacks them. Now, these players happen to be black women, and it just shows, and it's an example of why this guy shouldn't be listened to. All right, so we're going to play these clips. I'm going to stop them from time to time and refute points. Okay, so let's go.
Steve, I'm going to stay on your favorite topic, the WNBA and women's basketball. I just know how much you love diving deep into this. But Time Magazine figured out a way to name 13 women of the year. None of them happen to be named Caitlin Clark. Two of them happen to be named Aja Wilson, who plays for the Las Vegas, what's Las Vegas last Sun, maybe, plays for the Las Vegas Sun in the WNBA. And the other is Jordan Childs, who was a Olympic gymnast this year. Jordan,
all right, so let's stop it here. All right, so first problem here is he either pretends to not know or does not know the name of the Las Vegas Aces. He doesn't know the name of the team that plays in Las Vegas, okay? All right, so this should automatically raise an antenna. Number one, if he does know but he's pretending not to know, he shouldn't be listened to because he's not taking this sport seriously. He should be seen as a comedian. And what you do is you laugh at comedians, but you just don't give their opinions any weight. Okay? That's the one way you go. Any event that he does know, but he's pretending not to know, in order to just, to speak as if the sport is nothing, right? It's not important. Yeah, whatever. Who cares about knowing those women's names? If he genuinely does not know that the Aces is the name of the team that plays in Las Vegas, then he absolutely shouldn't be listened to because, number one, you're speaking about a subject as a so-called journalist without knowledge of the damn name of the team, which would also tell us that he doesn't even know who Aja Wilson is, doesn't know any of the other teammates are, doesn't know who the coach is, doesn't know he doesn't know anything. So he's unprepared to even speak on the subject. Okay? All he's looking to do is pander to a particular group of people that are similar to him in this vein. He's just reflecting the thoughts of the new fan base that are just Caitlin Clark nut huggers and followers. All right, so right there, this guy shouldn't even be paid attention to, just to start it off. Right, and who's this other guy that's with him?
it got not stripped of her medal is not the right word. I think there was some kind of judging error, and she ended up not getting her medal. So I think she won a bronze and helped the team, blah, blah, blah. But she ended up losing the medal. And so I'm sitting here going, Woman of the Year is a basketball player, and her name isn't Caitlin Clark. Who had more impact on the sport of basketball, men or women, other than Caitlin Clark? They somehow found the second best woman in the WNBA, who had very little impact, had great stats, and had a terrific year and was MVP, but didn't win a championship, didn't make it to the finals. But they've all decided there's some sort of rig job that Asia Wilson is who everybody has to promote. And then they hop over to the Olympics and find this an Olympic gymnast not named Simone Biles. Simone Biles has been named Athlete of the Year by some, I think, didn't Sports Illustrated name her Sports Person of the Year? And somehow they figured out that some woman that came in third place that got stripped of her medal, she's the Woman of the Year. The leaps they're going to hype up Asia Wilson, hype up some gymnast that most people don't know exist is amazing to me. I want to read you Asia Wilson's quote.
All right, before we get into the Asia Wilson's quote, I do want to say this. It's very important to understand with these types of lists. You know, when Time Magazine decides to name 100 most influential people or 13 people of the year or whatever it is, it's important to understand why they pick those particular people. It's important to understand what the criterion was for the people they picked. Okay, sometimes when they pick people, it's because that person that year may have had the most intriguing story. It could be the person did something off the court. It could be that they did something on the court. It could be a number of different things, right? So it's important to look at why they picked the person. What you can't do is take your criterion and then decide based on your criterion that they should have picked such and such person. Now, without knowing why they picked, I'll just say this. I do believe Caitlin Clark should have made probably a list, and I believe she did make other lists and stuff like that. That's why it's like ridiculous. She's won awards and all these types of things. Okay, but that does not mean Asia Wilson should not have as well. Okay, and then what he said here to me is just like, come on, bro. About not winning the championship, team not getting to the finals. Asia Wilson has already won 2 championships, and she was MVP and so on. Also was on the Olympic team, okay, and was the best player on the Olympic team. I don't know, I didn't read the article, but typically the authors who write these articles have their reasons. Caitlin Clark probably wasn't there for another reason. Maybe she didn't fit that criteria. Maybe their story wasn't intriguing to fit the narrative they were going with in the article. I don't know. With regards to the other girl that made it, besides Simone Biles, I don't know what that was about either. It could be because of what she went through in terms of losing the title and all of those, losing the medal and all those different things that added to it. My point is, you got to know why they picked them in order to judge it. Other than that, like, you're just thinking they should pick who you think they should pick. All right. But anyway, let's go on to as he continues his nonsense with Asia Wilson.
Because Asia Wilson sees herself as, again, the woman king and overcoming all these incredible odds. And oh my God, nobody knows the struggle she's had. Nobody knows her sorrows. Let me read Angel Reese, not Angel.
Before we go into it, I just want to briefly say I've done a little bit of research on Jason Whitlock's background. He's a son of a father from Indianapolis who either ran a bar or some sort of like a lounge place or whatever. His mother, I couldn't find much information on because I was curious. Like with these types of guys like him, I'm always curious, like who raised them, that sort of thing. But anyway, he appears to have actually been an athlete in high school. Okay, and he was good enough to gain a scholarship. Okay, which most people don't even get to do that. So I gave him that. He, however, got into journalism. I don't know. It didn't go into what I read. Didn't go into the details. I don't know if it was due to an injury. I don't know if it was just he wasn't good enough to make pro, which is what happens with most. Most people get a scholarship to go to college. They're just not good enough to make pro. So he got into journalism. Okay. What I've noticed with him though is he tends to have a little bit of an animosity towards people who do make it pro. If you listen to over the years, a lot of his criticism towards LeBron James, Serena Williams, and other typically black athletes, you'll see that he thinks that they're blessed with all of this great body to play the sport. He believes they're privileged throughout life because people give them things. He seems to have an animosity towards the privilege that comes with athletics. But what you don't see is him acknowledging the other types of privilege, and I find that really strange. And we'll go into that a little bit as he goes into what Aja Wilson had to say in Time magazine.
Aja Wilson's quote in Time magazine, she's talking about Caitlin Clark, and they ask her a question about Caitlin Clark admitting her white privilege and working to empower black women, and Caitlin Clark going woke and, kissing the ring of Black Lives Matter and all that, and the Yas Queens. So here's Aja Wilson.
All right, well, that's a lie. There was nothing mentioned about Black Lives Matter, okay? What they were talking about is Caitlin Clark acknowledging that, especially when it comes to marketing and marketability, that there is a certain amount of, you have more of a chance of being more marketable with these large companies that sell products when you're white and can play, as opposed to when you're black and can play, because marketing has a big portion of marketing is about image, okay? And what they do is they pander to the majority, which is the Caucasian people in the States. Right. This is really not even controversial. This is a fact. This is an absolute fact. Right? Marketers play a role in what happens with what you see. So being white does have its benefits. And as we've discussed privilege before, there's a number of different types of privileges in the world. Just being white isn't the only type of privilege. There's the privilege that does come with being an athlete. Without a doubt. Athletes oftentimes will be given, free cheesesteaks if you're in Philadelphia. If you Rasheed Wallace coming up and you're just a known great player. On the street, you might receive protection. Like, say, if you're in the hood, you might receive protection from gangsters or whatever. There's a number of things that you might get. And my thing is, okay, so what? If you acknowledge it, okay, you acknowledge that others don't necessarily get that. That's it. Only an arrogant people would refuse that. Like, if you're, as an American, when I lived in the Middle East for a certain period of time, I received a certain type of privilege. Even though I'm a black man, but over there, because I'm American, I have an American passport, there's a certain type of privilege that you get as an American. There just is. When I went to work teaching English in schools, I got paid more money, all right? I got paid more money than Middle Easterners who were better qualified, meaning they had master's degrees and so on. Just because I was an American, I got paid 3 times more money than them. Okay, that's privilege. Though I was less qualified, that's privilege. Okay? There's so much evidence of this going on in America. All right. Now, the difference with what Aja Wilson is talking about versus Caitlin Clark, that's just I don't care about the privilege as far as fanfare. What I'm talking about is when it comes to marketing. Okay? This fan privilege who decides what they want to watch, there's nothing you can do about that. And really, who cares about that? But anyway, let's go ahead.
It's powerful to me. As a black woman in the WNBA, we have our struggles in showcasing who we really are. A lot of agendas get pushed on a lot of different platforms that may shadow us. You work so hard, but you still have to work 10 times harder just to be seen. So when can we have our counterparts speak up? It speaks volumes to me because they're in spaces where my path is never supposed to go. It's crazy that we're talking about that in 2025, but it's real. We see those things as black women. We see where people stand up and speak for us. I know.
All right. So first of all, we see he's an asshole, just simply because he has to do the mocking voice and all of that. But whatever. Maybe he thinks he's funny. Maybe there's some people out there that thinks he's funny. I don't know. I don't think he's funny at all. But we'll let him finish, then I'll comment.
Got a lot of backlash from that. Because obviously, we live in a world where they don't want that, and it's exhausting. But imagine dealing with that and then having to go out and play every single night, having to constantly have to worry. How are they about to downgrade my resume now? What more do I have to do in order to showcase how elite and how serious I take my job? But I also do it with love and passion and fun. A lot of people don't want to see me at the top, and that's fine. But I'm going to be there because I work my butt off to get there.
All right. So pretty much, you all heard what she had to say. That was pretty much self-explanatory, right? She's pretty much talking about as an athlete, the amount of work you got to put in to be as good as you are. And for people not to care. Now listen, you and I can have this attitude, and for years I probably had an attitude like, look, people don't want to watch it. It's a shame, but who cares? Because there's bigger things going on in the world. That was my attitude with it. I just didn't care to watch women's basketball like that. And listen, people have a choice. They don't have to watch it. They don't. But at the same time, I try to be empathetic towards people when they speak how they feel. And as someone who is putting in work, that's how she feels about it. And that's it. Okay, you listen, okay, and you keep it moving. I don't see the need to be really what he's being right now. He's being like a bully, actually. I don't see the need to do that. What do you get out of that? It's just my question. What do you get out of saying, ha ha, nobody's watching what you're doing, ha ha, nobody cares, I don't get what you get out of that.
That's so powerful, Steve. Could you? Very, very powerful.
First of all,
Asia Wilson. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, Steve.
Can we address this? My continent is not your name. What's with the cultural appropriation? Isn't that a big thing? What's going on there?
Yeah, he gotta laugh. I don't know. First of all, I don't know who this dude is. I don't know, he's Chinese or Korean or whatever. He does his hair blonde. I don't know what that's about. And he's Asia. No, her name is Asia. Yeah, it's Asia actually. But they don't even know the damn team she plays for. Don't know the name or anything like that. Whatever.
Asia. Yes.
Right. Shouldn't she really be Ajay with the way it's spelled? And second of all, okay, I want to admit this.
Strange, I believe.
Strange, yeah. Okay, I want to admit this. I don't like to admit it, but we strive for honesty and integrity here on Fearless. For a long time, I was actually a subscriber to Time. I thought I had to expand my horizon. I actually got the physical copy delivered to my office. There came a point where I just said, okay, no more. And when that envelope comes addressed Time, where they try to get me to re-up, I cannot throw away that envelope and that piece of junk mail fast enough into the garbage bin. And here's the sense of entitlement that Ajay has. Look, don't take this the wrong way. You're very good at what you do. But you really overhype your own sense of importance. Nobody really cares that much. We don't care to a point that we even want to downgrade you. And most of us that actually read your...
Well, that isn't true. I mean, if you don't really care, you're not going to deal with it on this here platform. You care because you know that there's a group of people out there who only watch Caitlin Clark who love to hear you talk like this. So that's a lie. Right? That's a lie. You're only saying what you're saying because it's kind of mean, it's insensitive, and those are the types of things that those loser Caitlin Clark people, supporters, want to hear. So that's, if you want to be honest and have integrity, that's really what's going on.
Comments and see some of the browbeating you've done, we find you completely unlikable. But again, we generally have apathy towards them. And can we be honest about this, Jason? Yes.
All right, so let's talk about this unlikable stuff. Okay, so if you are an athlete and you're a woman and you put in the amount, because first of all, they don't understand the amount of work that you got to put in to just be good. Jason Whitlock probably has some understanding of it because he tried and failed. This powder puff guy right here, because that is what he is, he's a cream puff, powder puff. He doesn't even have the first understanding of it. Even in martial arts, right? In order to perfect just a punch, typically you got to throw about 100,000, if not almost up to 1,000,000 punches, in order to just have that thing perfected. You want to get to the point where it's muscle memory. So that takes a lot of work. And then to go out there and really work just as hard as like men who work. But people don't watch. And oftentimes it's not necessarily because it's a bad product. And this is what I realized. The WNBA is not a bad product. It's partly because they just didn't have the promotion. They didn't have the television deals. Because let's be for real, people will watch damn near anything if you promote it properly. Okay, there's no offense on soccer or hockey, but like me personally, I don't get what people get out of that soccer or hockey. I really don't. Like, I'd rather watch WNBA basketball over either one of those, right? But someone who's into those sports will tell me I'm out of my mind, and I get that. But my point is, what one person thinks is boring, there's 10 other people out there that thinks it's the greatest thing there is. People who love women's basketball, they're very passionate about it. They love it. There's a potential to grow those types of people, and that's out there. There is no nobody really cares and this and that. No, dude, there's reasons why that's the case. Hasn't been promoted, hasn't been presented to them. People haven't given it a chance. All of those different things. And when Aja Wilson is speaking, she's really speaking to those individuals who can do something about it, meaning those promoters and so on, right? She's not even really speaking a whole lot about, this weird Caitlin Clark fan base who just Elvis Presley followers. Not really talking so much about them, really, except for when she receives the hate, because most of the hate comes from that sector. So anyway, I just disagree with what he's saying.
The WNBA had a exponential growth in terms of interest. But here's the other part that nobody wants to say. 97.9% of it was based on one player. That is the reality. If Caitlin Clark decided, you know what, I'm done with basketball, I'm going to be a nun, I'm joining the monastery, I'm going to go to Nepal and go up into the mountains and have a religious experience, the interest would go back down to basically zero.
All right. What's amazing about this is he thinks he's the only one who said it. Nobody wants to say. Pretty much everybody says that, right? Even Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharp, even they say it. Everybody says that. The narrative, that's actually the popular narrative out there, is that, all this interest came as a result of Caitlin Clark. It's not really that simple. Of course, Caitlin Clark has a tremendous amount of followers, okay? Some of which are true basketball people, many of which are not. There are people who use her as a means to spew the nonsense they want to spew. And I know this is true because they come into my comment section and they say racist things and so on and so forth. They hide their face, of course, because they know, you come to me and do that, But my point is, there's a whole lot of those people, okay? And, but then there's also a large fan base that like Angel Reese as well. This is why, and this is what the ratings bear out. When the Indiana Fever and the Chicago Sky face each other, you get more people watching than if it's just the Indiana Fever. Okay, so yes, the Indiana Fever do have good ratings, great ratings, but their ratings are bumped up even more when they play the Chicago Sky. You get the most. Their ratings are also good when they play New York Liberty and when they play the Las Vegas Aces. Okay, so there's a number of things going on with the WNBA. What we do see is certain teams, certain areas have a pretty good fan base. New York Liberty, because that's a big market. Or if you just get a small portion of New York, you'll have a good fan base. Vegas Aces, they have a good fan base that follow the team. I don't know what's the deal is with the Los Angeles Sparks. I will have to look back at when they were good and so on, or which wasn't all that long ago. But the times when they're good, you figure LA is a good marketing place. The other problem is it's only 12 teams. You have more teams, especially if they would open up a team in places that where people are passionate about sports. Philadelphia maybe being one. I don't know what. Indianapolis maybe. Well, they got the Fever there. My bad. I don't know. I believe there's a lot of potential there. For if you pick other places, maybe Baltimore, places where people are passionate about sports. There's reasons, in other words. There's reasons other than the product is just bad. There's reasons other than, Caitlin Clark is the only one worth watching and stuff like that. Most people don't know until they give it a shot. And they say, man, this basketball is actually pretty good.
That's the truth.
What percentage did you put on Caitlin Clark?
97.9. I did the math. I'm Asian. We're good at this. Trust me.
Whoa, I think you're way off. I was hoping you said 99.7%.
Well, I mean, I know, but I just look.
You crack me up with that. We're Asian, so we're good at this. Listen, man. I remember when I went to school with mixed bags of mixed people. I've been to schools, of course, that's predominantly black, all right? But I've also, at certain times, been to schools where there's Asians in the damn classroom and there's a whole bunch of white people in the classroom, all right? Stereotypes are just dumb as hell. All right, sure, there was this one Asian girl that really was serious about her work. She was a nerd, a geek, got it in. She was always at the top of the class with her numbers. Then there was another dumbass Asian dude in there who was at the bottom. All right, so you got the one Asian is up there getting 90s, 95s. You got the other dummy getting 70s. Okay, and then with white people, you got a couple of white guys that are nerds and a couple white girls that are getting good grades, and then you got a bunch of dummies at the bottom of the class. All right, so the stereotypes when it come to that are just stupid. Now, as far as a lot of the numbers that you'll see with that are put out there generally, first of all, it's with those who participate, and secondly, a lot of it has to do with how much time you actually put into studying. It has little to do with like your brain, just the quality of your brain in general. It's like what you do with your time. But at any rate, it's no way it's 99%. That's stupid because you already had a product that was there anyway. Now the growth comes as a result of many people following. Like we have Paige Beckers this year. The people who watch her will follow. They'll follow her into the pros, Van Lith, so on. It's the way it goes. And then when you get some of the international players, then maybe they'll get attention as well. Right? Yeah. That's the way that works. To say it's just 99%, nah. And then the thing about the Caitlin Clark fan interest, they're just a small portion of the overall WNBA interest because those people only watch Caitlin Clark. Right? What they do is if they don't get their way, like meaning if Caitlin Clark isn't put on All Star teams, if she isn't put on Olympic teams, they threaten to not watch, and they try to destroy the league actually. Right? So I wouldn't go out there giving them a whole bunch of credit like that. And many of them are out to destroy more so than to build.
I was trying to be charitable. Trying to be charitable.
Too charitable. What I love here is she basically says that, speaking out and doing all this is so hard. It's 10 times harder. But and then she says, but imagine dealing with that and then having to go out and play. And so she's comparing herself to Caitlin Clark. Does Caitlin Clark not go out and play every night? It's like only Asia Wilson goes out and plays every night. And so it's like, oh, this is so much harder for me because I have to go out every night and play. Is Caitlin Clark sitting at home? I don't know. Did she go out and play? This pretending, I think I'm being just objective here. You guys hop in the chat, tell me on email, maybe I'm wrong. Isn't there 20 times more pressure on Caitlin Clark than on Asia Wilson? If Asia Wilson has an off night, no one cares. It's Caitlin.
All right, first of all, pressure isn't about fans caring. Pressure is about performing for the organization that you're working for, who's paying your check, getting them championships. Winning so that you improve the overall product. It's not about like just fans caring. Okay, that's the first thing. The other thing is I would beg to differ that there's more pressure on Caitlin Clark, especially last season, because Caitlin Clark was a rookie. Let's say she went out there and did not perform well, because there was a portion of the season where she wasn't performing well. When that was happening, she didn't lose her fan base. She didn't lose her fans. What you heard was every excuse in the book. Well, Caitlin Clark is tired because she just finished doing a championship run. This is what you were hearing. You were hearing Christy Sigh, the coach, doesn't know how to use her. They should change the way they play. You were hearing all of her teammates are bad. They can't catch her fancy passes. Okay? Aaliyah Boston sucks. You were hearing, actually, she was receiving death threats to the point where she had to close out her social media. Right? You heard about Alyssa Smith and her, illicit relationships. You heard about Kelsey Mitchell, trying to hog the ball. This is what you were hearing. Right, so believe it or not, Caitlin Clark faces very little pressure because the particular fan base who have interest, they're very dedicated. They're going to watch her anyway, and they're going to make excuses for her, and they're going to attack every single one around her, including teammates and the organization. All right, whereas AJ doesn't have that, obviously. Okay, so that's the thing that he's missing in his analysis, because what he's doing is he's trying to paint a narrative in a specific way, and that's why this dude can't be taken serious as a journalist at all.
Clark has all the attention, all the focus. Asia Wilson, for most nights, is a tree falling in the woods. And she's acting like, oh, I'm under this immense pressure because if I have a bad game, blah, blah. No one cares. What are we? The delusion is mind-blowing to me.
This is a line that...
Yeah, he's an idiot, right? Because an athlete has to perform for their organization, right? You're deemed as the best player on your team, so she has to perform. Whether or not people in Indiana are watching doesn't matter. That's not something that, like, that isn't what gives you pressure. This is oftentimes the thing with the media. They believe that they're the ones that are applying pressure. This is something that Skip Bayless for years. He thinks the pressure comes from him. No, it doesn't. It comes from the team that you have to perform for. And that even goes with Caitlin Clark. It's like the pressure is on her to perform, fulfill her role for the team. It's not anything much bigger than that for players. But he should know that. This powder puff, of course, obviously can't relate to that.
I used one time at a Clarissa Shields fight that I was forced to go to while I was at ESPN. And it applied to a lot of WNBA games pre-Caitlin Clark. You could throw a hand grenade into the stands of a WNBA game, nobody would get hurt. That's the truth. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark basically plays almost to capacity crowds or much bigger crowds than any other player the last 3 to 4 years of her life.
Ultra Fire cervical care pillow. Even orthopedic doctors are using it. Orthopedic.
So anyway, he just ends it off with this same false argument, that, well, because there's more people watching, this makes more pressure and so on. No, the pressure that Adrian Wilson faces is that she's the best player in the league and she has to continue that. She has to keep that up. Caitlin Clark was a rookie last year. Okay, so the expectations are not really that high. He's not expected to average 20 points, not expected to lead the league in anything really. Maybe next year she'll be expected to lead the league in assists because she did last season. Hopefully she'll be expected to cut out the turnovers as well. But this isn't really about her. This is about Jason Whitlock. And this continued attack on everybody and everything that's black. And that's what I got to say, man. Tell me what y'all think on that. Peace out.